translated by 4 or 5 people, but the best translation, the title of the book is called Realization of the Absolute. How he got that title, I don't know. The real Sanskrit is called Naishkarmya Siddhi, which means the attainment of actionlessness. That's the literal meaning. The attainment of actionlessness, in which you no longer are an actor. You don't do anything. And the book is about how does one attain the perfection of being freed from all actions. So, but in English, it's called Realization of the Absolute by A.J. Alston, A-L-S-T-O-N.
Okay, very good.
So she was giving some talks on this thing. It turns out that her teacher of Advaita Vedanta lives in this tiny town in South India called Mathur. And in that town, everybody speaks Sanskrit.
Oh.
The children, the guy that sells the toothpaste, and the rickshaw guy, they speak Sanskrit in the town. It's a small town. There's maybe 800 people living in this town. And it's the only town in India where everybody, they raise the children in the house, they speak colloquial Sanskrit.
Wow.
So these people, they study Vedanta, non-dual Vedanta in this town. It's called Mathur. In the way that I've been teaching it here. They follow that same Swamiji that I studied with. So her teacher of Vedanta comes from that town. So she understands it in a way very similar to myself, but her Sanskrit is much better. So she's like a real scholar. And so when she gives a lecture, lots of interesting things she brings out. Her name is Hajj, H-E-D-G-E, Hedge.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay.
I think it's time to start.
Yes, let's start. Let's
begin.
Yes.
Hit record.
It's
Okay.
recording.
So, are we ready? Everyone's muted?
Yep.
So let me begin with this traditional prayer, just to kind of center ourselves. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmat Guru Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. That chant says, starting from that infinite consciousness, that's where this teaching began. It starts from the self. It's revealed by the self, starting from that infinite consciousness, and in the middle, Shankaracharya, down to our own teachers, to that succession of teachers and students, Vande Guru Paramparam. I make my obeisance to that Vedantic tradition that has come down, starting from that consciousness, which is the self, through the rishis, right down to Shankara, down to our own teachers who have all followed this one traditional teaching, to that parampara, as it's the way it's come down, to those gurus who have realized their oneness with that reality and so have become one with that. And that's why you say Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo. The Guru is the creator. Everything comes from him because he's one with that. He is the sustainer. He is, everything merges into him, that infinite consciousness. That's who the real guru is, your own self. Sakshat Parabrahma, that direct and immediate reality. To that guru, my salutations. So that's the meaning of that prayer. So let me continue. This is the third talk on the ancient wisdom teachings. And those teachings are being based on the Mandukya Upanishad. Now, just a very, very brief summary of what's gone before, just to pull it back into where we were. I had stated that this teaching teaches that there's only one reality without a second. That's all there ever was, that's all that there is, and that's all that there ever will be. And that reality is who each and every one of us, our true nature, who we really are, even though we think we were born in a world and we're getting sick and old and dying. This teaching says that one reality is who we all really are in truth. And the third unique point was that that inner self, who we really are, is the witnessing consciousness inside of us, the witness of the ego, the witness of all our thoughts, the witness of everything. That inner witness in us, that is that one reality without a second. And I said that this traditional teaching, the one method in all of the scriptures, that there's just one method, and that method is always the same. You say something for the purpose of teaching. Different things are attributed, are superimposed, merely as a means to realize the final truth that you are the non-dual reality. So whatever is taught in the beginning, that thing has to be negated in the end. And after everything is negated, every concept, every word, every idea, every object, every subject, when it's all negated, that one thing that remains, that can never be thought away, that can never be negated, you are that. That's the unchanging non-dual reality. So the method of Vedanta, every Upanishad, even though they talk about so many different things, is using this method, and there is no other method. In fact, if a person doesn't understand this method to the exclusion of everything else, how the scripture, how these ancient wisdom teachings, what is the methodology by which they convey this truth to the inquirer. If you don't know that method, you're not in this line of non-dual teaching. You may say that you're a non-dual teacher, but there were so many other non-dual teachers in this world that said that there's only one reality, there's no duality. But some of them said that if you want to realize this reality, you should act in a particular way. You have to do all of the religious works, and then when you die, you'll get that reality. Some people said that. Other people said, no, you have to meditate. If you meditate, you'll get the knowledge of who you really are, and then you'll know that you are one without a second, by meditation. There were other teachers who said that if you do self-inquiry, like Ramana Maharshi, if you ask the question, who am I? And pursue that question, you could realize I am that non-dual reality. There were other people that said that even after you get that non-dual wisdom, your life will continue and you'll still experience happiness and sorrow even after you know that truth. And so it's not until you die that you'll become one with that finally, that the real liberation is after death. As long as you have a body, you're still going to get burnt and hungry, and so there's no way out in this life. They were non-dualists too. There were other people that had so many other ideas. I won't list them. It's worth knowing. But people like Nisargadatta, people like John Klein, people like Krishnamurti, people like Francis Lucille, people like Sailor Bob, people like John Wheeler, people like Rupert Spira. They're all non-dualists, but they don't, this method of Vedanta is unknown to them. The method of deliberately superimposing, because for them it's real. You really do realize yourself. But in this tradition, the idea that you have to realize yourself is just a deliberate superimposition. That gets negated in the end. Nobody realizes the self. But for these people, it's real. You really were ignorant. You really realized the self, and then you become free. But that's because they don't know the method of Vedanta. Whether it's Tony Parsons, Mooji, Papaji, none of them knew this method. If I was merely repeating the same non-dual teaching that all these other swamis and so-called Advaita teachers, I wouldn't even bother giving these talks. It would be of no interest to me because I'd be repeating what they're repeating. I want to get across the idea that what I'm trying to say here is a very peculiar traditional teaching that if you don't know this teaching, then there'll be tons of defects. Liberation would really be real. You would have attained it at a particular time, and then it could never be eternal. That there were people who thought that ignorance was something, and that you have to remove that thing, and then you would become liberated. But if ignorance is something that actually exists, then when you removed it, you'd be liberated at that time. And so liberation would have a beginning. And if anything has a beginning, it must have an end. So there's a defect in that. The other thing is, if ignorance is something that really exists, then knowledge could never remove it. Because knowledge could never remove something that really exists. Knowledge just makes something that's unknown known. So it can't remove anything that exists. Even the belief that there's ignorant people and people that have knowledge can only be in duality. But the real ultimate truth that's being taught here, that there's only one reality without a second. There are no ignorant people and there's no wise people. If there were, duality would be true. So that can't be correct understanding. There can be no gurus. There can be no students. There can be no path. Even though in the beginning, there's talk about the necessity of a teacher, the qualities of a student. But in the end, that will be negated in this methodology. So, having said that, I said that one of the methods of Vedanta is to, for the time being, to follow everybody's universal experience that I believe that I'm having three states. I am awake, I had a dream, and then I was in deep sleep and I didn't know anything, and then I woke up. In this waking state, it seems sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm not happy. And then in the dream state, I could be happy in that dream or unhappy. So again and again, I experience happiness and unhappiness in both the states. And then finally, it seems I get some rest from all of this in deep sleep. The whole thing takes a break and I'm not aware of anything. But then I wake up again. And this is what the three states are. So this is what everybody believes. So Vedanta, for the purpose of teaching, accepts that there are three states. Even though if there were three states, it wouldn't be true that there's just one reality without a second. But for the purpose of teaching, Vedanta says everyone's common experience is that there are three states. And it says, let's examine these three states. And how that examination takes place, according to this method, that in the end, it's going to negate, there are no states. But in the beginning, it's going to say something about the waking state, the dream state, and deep sleep, in order to remove some other misconceptions. It presents the states in a way that we haven't thought about previously. Now, this method of the three states, I said there were 5 unique things about it that if you just pick up this Upanishad, the Mandukya Upanishad, and read it by yourself, or even read it with Shankara's commentary, you won't be able to appreciate these 5 points. The first 2 points I already went into great length in. I'll just quickly say it. The first point was, this examination of the three states is not to examine the three states, but to demonstrate that there's only one self without a second. That's the first secret. It's not about the states at all. It's just using that as a means to teach that there's only one self, that the one who's experiencing the three states, his true nature, her true nature, their true nature, is that non-dual, absolute, infinite bliss. That's the purpose of examining the three states, not to examine any states. First secret. The second secret was that if you examine these states in the proper way, you would have examined the complete spectrum of human experience. Because really, the whole spectrum of human experience can be boiled down to 2 things. You're either aware of something or you're not aware of anything. There's no third experience. You have to think about that. You can challenge me on that. If someone says, no, I have some other experience other than I'm aware of something or I'm not aware of anything, it has to fall into one of those 2 categories. And I further said that of the first category, I'm aware of something, you can divide that into seemingly 2 parts. You can either be aware of something that's real, like the waking state, we all take it to be real, or I can be aware of something unreal, like a mirage, like a snake on a rope, or like a dream. But that both of those fit into the first category. I'm aware of something, either real, waking, unreal, dream. But I'm aware of something in both of those states. And in deep sleep, I'm not aware of anything. So any other state, like coma, faint, samadhi, they say the yogi is not aware of anything in samadhi. Deep sleep, I'm not aware of anything. So the second point was merely by examining, because everybody doesn't have hallucinations or samadhi, but everybody has waking and dream, and everybody has deep sleep. So those are common to everyone, because this teaching is not based on somebody's private, unique experience, like some yogi who lives in the Himalayas and he's had some mystical state that we don't know about, and we have to practice what he does, and maybe someday we'll get the state that he has. There's only two states. You're aware of something or not. And if you examine waking, dream, and deep sleep unbiasedly, objectively, that's the full spectrum of human experience. And it's sufficient to determine what is the truth, because you haven't left out any experience in this examination. That was the second point. Now I'm going to move to the third point. And this is a difficult thing. The third point is that this world that we're all aware of, the universe, this whole universe exists in the states. This waking world, my waking world, exists in my waking state. Everybody thinks that I'm a knower. I exist in this body. I have these senses, and I'm in the world. The world is out there, the real world. I was born into a real world, and I am a knower of that world. And I'm an individual, and I'm awake, and I have a dream, and I sleep, and these states are existing in the world. But this teaching says that if you examine your experience, you'll come to understand that this waking world, your experience of the waking world is concomitant with your waking state. That the world is in the state. The states are not in the world. Waking is not in the world. The world is in waking. Now, this is not an easy thing to see, that as soon as your waking state begins, your waking world appears. If the waking didn't come, your waking world would not appear. As long as you were dreaming, there was no waking world. The waking world comes just like, this is easier to see, the dream world that was appearing during the dream only came when the dream came. Without the dream world can't exist. The dream world is concomitant with the dream state. Nobody believes that when the dream ends, that dream world continues to exist anywhere. That its existence is in the state. When the state ends, the world that was appearing in that state also ends, because the world is in the state. The states are not in the world. This is the way that we have to understand this, that the waking state that's appearing to me, that whole waking state, in that state, what is appearing is me. This me is in the waking state. This waking ego that appears as soon as the waking comes, Ira is here. And he has a body and senses and mind, and he was born, and he's getting old, and he's gonna die, and there's other people that are gonna live after I die, and there's a world that was here before me. It'll be here after this thing turns to ashes. That I is part of the waking world. But that waking world is pervaded by the waking state. It has no existence apart from the waking state. And that waking state is an object to me. It's the waking that appears to me, the whole waking. When the waking appears, the waking time, the waking space, the waking laws of nature, science, my body, my senses, all the other people that exist in this waking world, they all come with that, and I'm the witness of the whole state. We have to see that I'm not a person in the world, only aware of, I'm aware of the lamp, I'm aware of the computer, I'm aware of the table, that I'm the witness of the whole state in which this waking ego appears. That the waking ego, that's this guy, he is in the waking state. He comes with the waking. The waking ego never dreamt. The dream ego never awoke, because the dream ego comes and goes with the dream state. The waking ego comes and goes with the waking state. Everybody believes, before we hear this teaching, I am awake. I am awake. And then Ira, I had a dream. And then I slept. And then I woke up, as though there were one ego that's passing through three states. But when you look at it from the point of view of experience, you'll see that the waking ego never was in the dream. The waking ego was sublated as soon as the waking went. When the dream appeared, a new Ira appeared. That Ira was the waking Ira. As long as it was a dream, I took that to be the real Ira. A new Ira appeared to me. And that Ira was very different than the waking Ira. He may have been very thin or very fat or very shy or very extrovert in the dream. Different qualities. He may have been young. He may have been much older. A different Ira appears there. And in deep sleep, there's neither the waking ego appearing, nor is the dream ego appearing. They both disappear. So there's no one ego that's passing through the three states. The waking ego is stuck in the waking state. The dream ego is stuck in the dream state. And in deep sleep, there's no ego. So the question is there anything that continues unchanging throughout the three states? When the waking state appears, who does it appear to? It appears to me. When the dream appears and sublates the waking, who's the dream appearing to? Me. When both the states disappear, when you're not aware of waking and you're not aware of dream, I am not aware of anything, I, the consciousness, am not aware of any state, then the waking appears to who? That same consciousness. So what's continuing in all the three states is the consciousness, not the waking ego. That waking ego is in the world, and that world is in the state, and the states cancel each other. As soon as the dream comes, the waking is canceled. As soon as the waking comes, the dream is canceled. They mutually cancel each other. And that world that's appearing in the state is concomitant with that state. That's another secret, a unique thing about this teaching. We have to see that the states are not in the world. Waking, dream, and deep sleep. In the waking, there's the waking world. It's inside the state. Time and space, waking time and waking space. When the dream appears, there's dream time and dream space. This is a very important thing to understand, because the next point, so that's the third point. I could say much more about this, but this is something that you have to kind of reflect on. From the point of view of you as the subject, the states are objects. The whole state is an object. And the waking ego is a thing in the world that's appearing in the waking state, that's an object to you. You, the witness. You're the observer of the whole state. You're not in time, you're not in space. That's an object. You're the subject. You're not the little subject in the world. You're the true infinite consciousness in which the whole state is appearing, in which it disappears, in which dream appears, in which it disappears, unaffected by any of it. When that body in the dream is cut, you're not cut, because you're not that dream ego. This waking ego is also, when it's cut, you're not cut, because you're the witness of the whole waking state. We have to be able to intuit this truth. Am I in the state, or does the state appear to me? And in that state, there's the waking world. This vision is what has to be adopted in order to understand this Upanishad. If you can't understand that, and the Upanishad is teaching this, when we come to the verses, I will show you that. So that's the third important secret, that we have to see the world is in the state. The states are not in the world. The fourth point is that even though the states seem distinct, they appear quite distinct. Waking is not dream. Waking I see with my senses, but the dream is just an imagination inside my mind. So that appearance, it appears different. And the waking appears different. And deep sleep is certainly distinct and appears different than waking and dream. So there are three states that are appearing quite different. But even though they appear different, we have to see, when we examine the states with a subtle type of discrimination, we'll come to realize there's really no relationship between the states. They're not connected in any way. What is the reason for this? Normally we think, now I'm awake, and then I dreamt, and then I slept, and then I woke up, as though the states were following one after the other, and that my waking state was causing my dream state. That when I saw my friend in the waking, then that caused in the dream, I dreamt about him. If I didn't see my friend, I wouldn't have dreamed. So there must be a relationship between waking and dream. But if you've appreciated what I said in the third point, that in the waking state, waking time, waking space, waking causality is in there. And in the dream, that sublates the whole waking time, space, and now there's dream time, dream space. That time is in the states, so that there's no time outside of the states that you can say first there was waking, then there was dream, then there was sleep, because then they would have to follow each other in succession, and time would have to be outside the states. And that the states were events in time. But time is in the state. The states are not in time. When did the waking state begin? You look at your watch, oh, it began when I woke up at 8 o'clock. But that time is already in the waking state. When did the state begin? When did the dream begin? Well, in the dream, it's morning, but I went to bed, it was night. So it's morning. Did it begin in the morning? That time is in the dream state, but the states are not in time. There's no time outside of it in which there could be a succession of states. The second thing is, so there can't be three states, one after the other. And the only other way there could be three is if they were in juxtaposition in space. In space, I can have one thing, and next to it another thing, and next to it another thing. Waking, dream, sleep. You can have three things in space, or you can have three things in succession. But there's no common space in which the states could exist, because space is in the state. The states are not in time or space. Then what are they? What are these states that are appearing and disappearing? To me, the true me, the subject which witnesses the appearance and disappearance. What are these states? You know, if you were to look at a rope and mistake that rope and it was appearing as a snake, or it was appearing as a stick, or it was appearing as a garland, that one rope, the only reality there, first it was appearing as a snake, then I looked at it as appearing as a stick, and then I said, oh, maybe it's just a garland, it looks like flowers. All three of those appearances, there was no relationship between the snake and the stick and the garland. Why? Because there's only a rope there. They're just appearances. These states are like the stick and the snake and the garland. They just appear to me and disappear. They're like a dream. A dream, an appearance, means that which appears to exist, but in truth has no existence. The waking state appears and disappears. It has a beginning and then it ends. Before it appeared, it wasn't existing. After it's canceled, it's not existing. That means even while it was appearing, it's not existing. That which is changing can't be real. And that which is real never changes. that witness which never changes, whether the dream appears or the waking appears or they both disappear, that is the unchanging reality. You are the unchanging reality in which all the people appear, including this ego and all of the so-called friends and enemies and people that existed in the past, and that people that was, all of them exist in that one waking, in that waking world that exists in the waking state to which I'm the witness. That's the true self, the witness of waking. It's the states that, and these states have no relationship. An unreal thing can't be related. Only two real things can have a relationship, not two apparent things, two illusory things that have no existence. They can't be related. So thinking that there are three states and one state is causing the other is just an imagination in the waking state. It's like a guy in a dream who tells his friend, "Boy, last night I was dreaming about you," as though the dream was an event in the dream time series. Just like when I say, "Oh, I remember my dream." The only way that I could remember my dream is if dream was an event that took place in the waking. But dream cancels waking. It's not an event in the waking time series. It didn't happen in the past that I can now remember it. Then what is it when I say I remember my dream? It's just an imagination, just like the guy in the dream who says, "I remember my dream." There was no dream that he remembered. He's not even real. And the dream that he thinks he remembered is not real. So in fact, there are no three states. If you look at it subtly, you'll see that waking is a dream. And a dream is something that appears that has no reality. So dream is the same as deep sleep. There's no duality when the dream is appearing in truth. The subject and the object that appears in dream is just an appearance. In deep sleep, there's no duality. So dream is deep sleep. And when there's only deep sleep, without waking or dream, it's not even deep sleep. It's the self. You only called it sleep from the point of view of waking and dream. This is how the Mandukya is going to present these states, that they're both dreams. The second chapter of this text is called Vaitatya Prakarana, the second chapter, where the author, his name is Gaudapada, the whole chapter is to show that waking state and dream state are exactly the same. In great detail, much more than what I've done here. This is just an introduction. If you can appreciate that the waking is canceled by the dream totally, and there's no more waking world sitting somewhere when the waking ends. Just like when the waking comes, it totally sublates the dream, and there's no dream world sitting somewhere waiting to be visited again. That the states cancel each other. Just like as soon as I see it as a stick, it doesn't appear as a snake. The two appearances cancel each other, but the one reality that never changes is the rope. Here, the one reality is that consciousness in which the states are appearing and disappearing. That's the fourth important point. Even though it seems like there are three different states, the states are not related to each other in time. One state doesn't cause the other. They're all independent appearances to you. There's no three states. And so you're not even the witness of any states. That's the negation. When we see that the states are just appearances, they come and they go, they don't affect me at all. Just like the snake doesn't make any poison in the rope, the stick doesn't make the rope stiff, and the garland doesn't make the rope fragrant. Whatever happens in these states, I'm unattached, unaffected. I'm not in time. I'm not in space. That's Sat, existence beyond time and space. I'm that consciousness in which there's no waking, no dream, and no deep sleep. That's called Chit. And because there's no duality in me, that's called Ananda. That's the bliss of no second thing, the perfect peace of the absence of all limitations, desires, fears. That's called Ananda. That's the fourth point. And the fifth point is that this whole teaching has to be based on experience. In Sanskrit, the word is called anubhava. Anubhava pramukyaha. That primarily, the only way that we can understand this teaching is by introspecting upon our own experience. And even that word experience is problematic. I think a better word would maybe be intuition. And I'll explain what I mean by the word intuition and why I don't want to use the word experience. Because experience means when all the things that are outside that I'm aware of, that's my experience. I experience. My senses go out and I have the experience of things. But this is not an experience based on the senses coming in contact with some object. It's not an experience like that. How do you see the dream? Do you see them with these eyes? How do you see your dream? Do you see them with this body? We see the dream in our own light. We light up the whole dream with no senses needed, no mind needed. That direct experience that the dream is appearing to me, that's called intuition. We intuit the states, the experience of the whole state. That's the experience that's being relied on here. Because I'm the experiencer, the intuiter of waking, and I'm the intuiter of dream, I'm the experiencer, and that's the experienced. I'm the intuiter, because I don't use my senses to know the state. I know it directly, because my consciousness is always shining, and in that consciousness, the states appear and disappear. When it appears, I'm said to be the witness of the state. When the dream appears, I'm the witness of the dream. When they both disappear, you can say I'm in deep sleep, but I'm not aware of anything. No object is appearing, but I'm still consciousness. That's the unchanging consciousness that never changes inside of everyone. And there's one more point about this, that this experience of the whole state, that direct intuition, this is not the experience that we get through our eyes or our nose or our tongue or our ears or our skin, the five senses. It can't be known by this, nor can it be known by any type of reasoning. No amount of logic, no amount of induction or deduction from any facts generalizing something or from some general thing coming to some specific conclusion. None of that reasoning, no matter how much I reason, and any experience that I have with my mind that's not dependent on the senses, like happiness. I know when I'm happy. I know when I'm sad. Those are mental experiences. But this has nothing to do with sense experience or mental experience. That by which the mind itself is known. That's called intuition. In the Upanishads, it says like this. There's a famous verse that says, that which cannot be known by the mind, but that by which the mind itself is said to be known. Know that to be Atman, the real self, and not what they meditate on as this. That by which the mind itself, when the mind means all the thoughts, all the perceptions, all of the ideas, all the concepts, those things can't know that, but that by which all of that is known, that objectifies the mind. How does it see the mind? How does it see the thoughts? Directly, immediately. That's called anubhava. It's this anubhava, on the basis of that this teaching is taking place. That's the experience that's being appealed to. And reason in accordance with that intuition. For example, the waking cancels the dream. The dream cancels the waking. They mutually cancel each other. They can't be real. But the self, which is the witness of the appearance and disappearance of both these states, that never changes. And therefore, that is real. You see that reasoning? That reasoning based on that experience of the states, which we can only intuit. You can't see the waking state with your eye. You can't hear the waking state. How is the waking state known? There's one more important point that I want to point out here. In Vedanta, usually the teacher says, you think you're the ego, this I thought. I am fat, I am thin, I am old, I am young, I am so-and-so. That's the I notion, the ahamkara, the ego. We all think that's who I am. We identify with this thought. But Vedanta says, you are not this ego. You are the witness of this ego. That's your true nature. The ego that's always changing. I am happy. I am sad. The witness of that thought, like every other thought, there's an I thought. The witness of that thought is the true self of Vedanta. So when it's taught like that, we say, well, that's true. I'm the knower of all my thoughts, including the ego. So my inner self is not this ego. It's the witness. But I'm not the witness of Evelyn's thoughts or Paul's thoughts. They have their own witness. So there must be many witnesses, because my witness is stuck within this body, And that's why I only know these thoughts and these ideas and these perceptions, but I don't know everyone else's. But when you take the perspective of the whole state, then that witness is one. There's only one witness for the whole waking state. Now it's not an individual witness of just your ego. Now you're the witness of all of the people in the state. When the dream appears, there's many people appearing. Are they seeing the dream? Do the people that appear in the dream, are they seeing the dream? They're just appearances. There's only one seer of the dream, that's you. Nobody in the dream saw it. All those so-called individuals have no consciousness at all, even though they all seem like they're knowers and they know things. Really, there's just one knower for the whole dream. In the waking state, there seems to be so many separate knowers, and I'm a knower, and I'm the witness of that knower. But I'm not the witness of the other people. But when you take the states, then the witness is one, beyond time and space, not limited to this body, because time is in the states are not in time, and you're the witness of the state. What's the state? Just an appearance in you. It can't exist without you. The waking can't appear without you. So it has no independent existence, just like the snake can't appear without a rope. There's only one truth. You're the truth of the waking. You're the one reality that pervades the whole waking. You're that same reality. There's no dream tigers and dream people. You're the only reality of the whole state. It doesn't matter. So that what you call waking is you. What you call dream is you. There's only you. You are the only reality. Ekam Advityam, without a second. That's the purpose of this whole teaching. We have to intuit this truth. You can't know it through your mind, and you can't know it through your senses. But through this teaching, you can come to understand the truth. I am that eternal awareness, ever free, ever pure, ever awake. That is my eternal nature. I don't have to become that. I don't have to attain that. I am that. This investigation of the three states can produce this knowledge in your own experience on the basis of experience. But that word experience has to be understood, not sense experience, not mental experience, but the experience by which we know the mind, by which we know the whole state. That's called intuition. When the state appears, I light it up. It's not like I'm doing anything. It's just like the sun. When a snake comes out of the hole, we say, oh, the sun is lighting up the snake. When the snake disappears back into the hole, oh, the sun is not lighting up the snake. But the snake is just, the sun is just pure light. It doesn't do anything with, we just say it's lighting it up. It's not, when the waking appears, it's lighting it up. But it does no action of lighting it up. It's just pure consciousness. In that light, everything shines. If that wasn't shining, nothing could shine. You are the light of the universe, and that universe has no existence apart from you. You can intuit that truth on the basis of your own intuition. Last word about intuition. The reason I don't like that word is because in English vernacular, we think of intuition like a hunch. I have an intuition it's going to rain tomorrow, or an intuition that that guy is not that's not what I mean. I mean, we intuit, not experience. It's not through our senses or our mind, but this knowledge comes from the inside. That's why it's called intuition. Those are the 5 unique things about this teaching that no other teaching, no one who teaches this Mandukya understands it in that way. These 5 points are totally unique. And if you understand that, then in the next 2 classes, when I take these verses, I'm now going to start with the Upanishad, you'll be able to understand it in the light of what these 5 points bring out. And I think I'm going to end the talk with that sufficient. So we can have a few questions if anybody, I'm sure I've confused everyone at this point, but if anyone has some questions, feel free.
I have a comment. Very difficult to understand.
Say that again. It's very difficult to understand.
Very difficult to understand how in the dream state there's no such thing as a dream, and that when you wake up and you say, I dreamt about you, that is as unreal as you are in the waking state.
Well, the first point was, I didn't say that in the dream there's no dream world. What I said that the dream world comes with the dream state, just like the waking world comes with the waking state. To think that the waking world exists independent of the waking state is to make an abstraction that can never be verified and experienced. Nobody has ever experienced their waking world independent of their waking state. Exactly like nobody has ever experienced their dream world independent of their dream state. The point about when I say in the waking, I remember my dream, in order for me to remember something, that thing has to be something that I experienced in the past in this waking time. So the dream would have to be an event that happened in the waking time in the past, and I had to have experienced it so that now I could imagine, I could remember it. But I wanted to, the 4th point was that the states are not in time. Dream is not an event that took place. We all think in the waking state, there are 2 other states that are happening. The waking state is real. And in this waking, for a while, I dream while the waking is still there. And then I sleep as though the states are in the real waking world. But when you see the fact that the waking world, along with the waking time, is stuck in the waking state, and the dream world with the dream time is stuck, then you can realize I can't remember the dream. It's just like a guy in a dream who says, I had a crazy dream last night. The whole thing's an imagination. It's all a dream. The idea that there are 3 states is a dream. You can't remember the states because they're not events that took place in the past. Something to think about.
Thank you.
Obviously, if these are new ideas to you, and I'm sure they are, it requires quite a bit of wanting to make the effort to think about it. Is it really true? The states are not in time, and therefore they can't follow each other, and they can't be related?
Somebody has to
Somebody singing.
mute, please.
So,
Okay, hold on.
that's
Please mute.
so for that comment, I appreciate that it's hard to understand that, but I'm just throwing these ideas out because if you pick up even a little bit of it, there's some benefit to it. And if you can understand all five, you would have understand 5 unique things about this teaching that if you go anywhere in India or America or anywhere and ask somebody to teach you this, they will not know about these 5 points.
Okay.
All of these, and especially what the method is, how waking is dream. Dream is deep sleep. Deep sleep is the self. This idea has to be taught properly. The reason I'm taking the time to give these talks is because this type of understanding is not available anywhere because it's a very particular tradition. This is Shankaracharya and Gaudapada. This is how the Upanishads, they follow the Upanishad tradition of deliberately, there are 3 states, there's no states.
Okay.
That's
David, you wanted to say something? David?
Yes, as I understand it, or in the spirit of Neti, that your teachings and those of the Upanishads and the investigations and all infinite consciousness, they don't exist in the world, only in the state. We should reify them as real. And I just thought in a word about intuition. I mean, for Jung, that intuition, of course, can be external. That's the hunch. The publisher who knows which book is going to make it in the market, or real estate developer. An introverted intuition, or from the unconscious within of the visionary artist or the shaman. So intuition can be inner or outer, just for Jung. And then I want to know, what are we missing from the Sanskrit? We are kissing the bride through the veil. So after 30 years of Sanskrit, what do you intuit we've missed today?
So let me say, these 2 types of intuition you mentioned, that it does have that meaning, and that's why I'm reluctant, because I'm only using intuition in a very technical sense of how we see our mind with no instrument of senses or thinking, or how we see the states. That's what I mean by intuition. That's number 1. What you said about in the waking state, there are gurus, there's Vedanta, there's the Upanishads, there are students who want to study it, there's the method of Vedanta.
Wonderful.
But when the whole state is seen just like a dream, then you realize there are no gurus, there's no Vedanta, there's nobody to understand anything, because there's only the self. That's the real teaching that's trying to be taught here. And that if you were to think that there's really a method and there's really people who know the method and there's people, then you wouldn't have got to this, what's the subtlety of this teaching, that even the Upanishads are in the waking state. They're not real in the final analysis.
Not to reify.
Not to reify them is really real. But in the beginning, we're talking about there are teachers, there are people who don't know the self, you have to know. But that's not the final teaching. Because in fact, there only was the self. That's all that there ever was, is, or will be. And you can intuit that fact on the basis of your own intuition. That if you examine your experience, not from the waking biased point of view, but how the states actually appear and disappear to you without, and just like the dream, when it's appearing, it appears as waking. And this state, when it appears as waking. But they both cancel each other equally. The only way to see that fact is to take your stand in the witness and to see that both of the states are objects to you. You're not in time or space because the waking time is in the waking state, the dream time. This is a very subtle thing to see the fact of the matter. that it's not some mystical mumbo jumbo. It's your actual experience, that the dream does cancel the waking, and that the waking does totally cancel the dream equally. They both cancel each other. They can't be real. But there's something that's not canceled at any time. That's the reality. Timeless awareness.
Mm, mm.
Okay, any other questions?
Anybody else? Any other question?
Okay. So next week I'll start the
oh, wait.
Upanishad.
Just a minute. Who has a question?
Well, I had a question, but if the kids start screaming, I'll have to stop, okay?
This is
All
my
right.
good friend Gypsy.
Okay.
Namaste.
Hola. So let's see. I have always liked to think of my intuition very important, like my God, really. And I've been practicing to recognize it as real, like, you know, not like, oh, take a right side, take a left side, or something that I really talks to me, like this is my truth, what I have to do. Now, what has to do what I'm telling you with what you just tell me then today? How does I'm wrong, or what is what? And, I mean, because I'm interested when you talk about
So
it.
the actual practical thing, Gypsy, is that every one of us, including you have to forget about anything except your own experience, your experience of the waking state, not the idea that I have a waking state, Ira has a waking state, all you have to do is examine your own waking state, your own dream state, your own deep sleep. What is the experience of it? Then you'll come to the conclusion that I'm not in the states. The states are, I'm the Kshetrajna. I'm the witness of the whole Kshetra, the whole state. And from that point of view, I'm birthless, deathless, with no disease, no desire, ever peaceful awareness. That's the practical, seeing the fact in your own experience. You're not supposed to believe this teaching. You're not supposed to think that because somebody like Shankara or some prophet or that some yogi, everybody has waking. So you examine the state and see, does the state appear to you? And in the state is Gypsy. So the you is not Gypsy. Does the dream appear to you? Then that Gypsy that appears in the dream is not you. And when they both disappear in deep sleep, when you're not aware of any Gypsy or any time or any space, you're still there. When everything goes, see if you go. When you negate everything, see if the consciousness is negated in your own experience. That's the practical. That's what's being taught here. It's an examination of your own experience without being stuck in the waking state. You have to become the witness of the whole state. I'm going to explain this more when I begin this next class. But this is the practical way to do it. What is my own experience? Because you know what you're going to find? I, who was experiencing the dream, to me, the waking is appearing. Everybody thinks, oh, the waking is common. Paul is in my waking, Evelyn's in my waking. They all experiencing the same waking. But my dream, that's private to me. I only know my dream. But the waking is common. But when you look at it this way, just like the dream was only appearing to me, this waking is only appearing to me. In the Gaudapada Karikas, there's a beautiful verse. It says, to him, to whom the dream was appearing, to that alone, this waking is appearing. There's just one witness for both the states. They're both private. Nobody sees your waking. You're the only witness of the waking. It's not a common experience. We all think waking is common and dream is private. But when you actually see, I'm the witness of both the states. There's no witness of this waking except me. And all the people that are appearing in that state, Evelyn and Paul and Gypsy and everybody, and even this ego, they're all in the state and they're appearing to me. It's a private experience. It's not common. There's only one knower for both the states. This is the beauty and the profundity and the uniqueness of this teaching. But it's not easy because we're so identified with this waking ego. We look at everything through the waking. I'm the knower, and this world is known to me, and that's who I am. From that point of view, you can never understand this teaching. Let's end it like that.
Okay.
I'm going to end it with that traditional prayer.
Yes.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That is fullness, that witnessing consciousness. This appearance is nothing but fullness. From that fullness, this fullness appeared. In this fullness, in that fullness, this fullness exists. Take this fullness away, and only fullness remains. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I'll see you guys next Thursday. Have
Wonderful.
a safe, healthy week. Hari Om.
Excellent.
Hare.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.